All right, welcome in. We are here with Adventures in Business, our first official episode. My name is Amandi. I have Mandy with me. Welcome. How are we doing today, Mandy?
I'm doing awesome. I'm so excited. Our
Yes,
very first show.
yes, I am excited as well. It's just exciting. We love live streaming and all that. How was your weekend? Did you do anything interesting this weekend?
Yeah, I had a great weekend. I actually went to this new place I'd never been to before. And I think being in San Diego, as long as I have, I feel like I've been everywhere. But I went to this new place. It's called NOLA on Fifth. Have you ever
Oh,
been there?
not
I don't
yet.
know if
Tell
you
me
know.
about it.
Yeah. It's this it's a New Orleans style supper club, but they had a singer, a jazz singer. Her name was Romy Kay, and she
Mhm.
was actually a friend of our friends. She lives in New Orleans, but she's from San Diego. So she was back in San Diego just on a reunion tour. And this woman just sang from her soul. It was awesome. So we just
Okay.
got to sit there for, 3 hours, listen to this rad singer have a supper club style dinner. So it was really cool. Nola on Fifth. I hope I'm saying that right, but I'd never been there, and I think for me, it was like the highlight of my weekend. What about you? What'd you do this weekend?
Okay. I have to remember that because I'm coming to San Diego in October for TwitchCon. So that'll be a good place to maybe
Okay.
sneak away in the evening time. So thank you for that heads up. This
Yeah.
weekend, let me think what I did. Just really relaxing. I do a lot of reading over the summer. I'm reading these autobiography of musicians. I finished Nile Rodgers' autobiography. Amazing. It was amazing.
Ooh.
So I was reading that most of the weekend and just kind of cooling out, not doing much. I'm trying to perfect my Chex Mix recipe. So I was working on that too. So
what's the
it's
what's the secret? What's the secret to a good Chex Mix recipe?
you use the air fryer. You have some wheat checks, corn checks, rice checks, maybe some pretzels in there, some couple other secret ingredients, maybe a little brown sugar. So I was working on that
Ooh.
recipe. Yeah, yeah. Steven, I hope I pronounced your name right. Is it Swiderski? Hello, thank you for joining us live. We're glad to see you here. Steven says hi to you, Mandy.
Hi,
Um,
Steven.
yes,
Welcome.
yes. So who are we going to talk to today? What's the show going to be like today? Well, first of all, I think we want to talk about why did we decide to do this show. So I'll
Why
put
in
that
the heck?
question.
Why in the heck are we doing this show?
I'll put that question to you first, then I'll think of my answer.
Yeah. Well, so what you and I did a live streaming LinkedIn live during February because we had our Professionals International, our trade show, our annual education conference,
Weekon,
WeCon.
yes, Weekon,
And
yes.
I feel like you and I were the only two souls that volunteered to promote the speakers. We had all these great speakers. We said, let's do a teaser. Let's talk about it once a week. I think somebody said, let's do a live stream. And you and we did it
Yeah,
once a week.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I had so much fun doing that. And I kept thinking, how can I work with Amani again? I mean,
yeah.
you do live streams all the time. You are such a figure in the convention business. You are an awesome DJ. You're a gamification expert. So I kept thinking, like, how do I work with this guy again? And then a month later, I left. I went away for a month and I went on my book tour. And while I was on
Mhm.
my book tour, these people kept coming up to me after I would sign something or after I gave a speech, and they were telling me their business stories. And
Mhm.
some of them were gut wrenching and some of them were hilarious. And I kept thinking, I'm like, do I write this? Do I blog? How do I share these stories? Because I almost felt selfish. Like I felt like, I get to hear these stories and I get to make tweaks to my business based on these really awesome stories people are telling me. But how do I share this? It kind of feels selfish not to tell the world about them. And
Right.
then I thought, well, maybe we share the stories on a live stream. And then I know I approached you and asked you about it. And I thought, Amani's going to think I'm crazy. Like, we just want to share other people's stories. We're not promoting anything. We're not selling ourselves. We
Right.
just are
Mm-mm.
curious business people. And then that's so I want to do the show because I want to get the stories out there. That's why I'm doing it. I just think the more infectious storytelling we can share with people, the more we can lift each other up. And whether you work for a corporation, but you want to exert your entrepreneurial spirit, or whether you want to start a business, I hope that some sort of nugget in our show helps you. But you tell
Okay.
me, like, why do you want to do this
Ah.
show?
I mean, well, first of all, Anthony Graziano, hope I said your name right. Welcome in. Thank you for joining us. Laurie Kime, hello. We're excited too. Good to see you. Michelle Devine, hello, hello. Thank you all for joining us. If you say something in the chat, we'll shout you out. If you ask a question in the chat, we'll also ask your question live too. So keep that in mind. Me, I love live streaming. Live streaming changed my life back in like March 2020, just kind of going live, whether it be DJ sets, interview shows, award shows. And I used to do a podcast, and I feel that when we interview people, that's just like we're attending a master class. So today we're attending a master class with Maria, and I think that that's just very contagious, and I love to learn. So whenever there's an opportunity to work with someone who's as dynamic as yourself, a fellow author, a fellow meeting and events professional, why would I turn that down? I mean, it's fun. Plus, we can, meet people and practice the live streaming too. So excellent. That's my reason. Vicky Meldrum, hello. Yes, we're going to give you some nuggets. And Patty Gannon, hello. We are excited as well. So I'll shout you out there. That's what Twitch practice will give me to. So that's my reason. I'm excited. What should we do? Who are we going to talk to today?
I think I'm going to introduce our guest. I think
Okay.
we're going to talk to Maria Disla. And Maria Disla, she's the founder of Pure Indoor Cycling. She also owns her own fitness consultation company where she helps people that run their fitness business open up a studio or better run their business. She actually, Pure Indoor Cycling, celebrating their 6-year anniversary next month,
Okay.
August 1st.
Round
So
of applause.
this is a
Round of applause there.
yeah, it's a huge deal. And Maria's just a really creative entrepreneur here in San Diego. She leads the charge in customer service and with how to take care of better customer engagement, social media, all the things. So I wanted to have her on to have her share the nuggets. She's from New York, a tech woman from New York who was not in the fitness business at all, but just decided to open a studio. And so, Maria, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for
Yes.
having me. What an intro.
Well, there you go. We give you your flowers while you're here. Excellent intro there. Brian is with us. Our test guest is with us too, chatting. So,
Best guest.
what should? Yes, yes. We love to kind of let you share some information about yourself, Maria. Maybe in like 90 seconds or less. Some things that weren't in the bio, but you think we would want to know and make you unique. So talk to
Yeah.
us, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to chat with you guys and to talk more about Pure and just all the things. And so I'm really excited. And to be your inaugural guest is super, super cool. So I'm very honored and thank you guys. So something that wasn't in the bio. So I am from New York City, but I was actually originally born in the Dominican Republic. So I'm Dominicana from originally from the heartland. I moved to San Diego maybe about 9 years ago. And like Mandy said, I was in tech. And I had moved from New York City to LA and met my now fiance when I was in LA. And in coming to San Diego to visit and all that kind of stuff, I kind of realized that there was a need. And that led me to wanting to open a fitness studio, which I'd never done before and had no idea how to do, but kind of somehow figured out. And here we are 6 years later.
6 years later. Jennifer Gale, welcome in. We're glad to see you with us here. Jennifer says she met you, Maria, with Mandy at a cycle event. I'm always a fan of when people move from different areas of the country. I've lived in a lot of different areas. So how would you compare New York to living in LA to living in San Diego? Like, what's the differences there?
Yeah, so moving from New York to LA was actually not that difficult of a transition from a work perspective because I was doing the same job for the tech company that I had been doing before. I was a senior account manager, so I had to deal a lot with brands and all the agencies we worked with and all that kind of stuff. The clients changed, so that was kind of cool. When I moved to LA, I got to experience like the Oscars, going to them in person, and I got to go be on the lot and go to movie premieres and that kind of stuff. So that was very cool. The traffic is a huge difference.
Yes.
For sure. But I think the mentality from New York to LA was somewhat similar from a business perspective. And then when I moved to San Diego, I really noticed a huge difference in terms of how people work and the pace at which people work. I think that definitely took me a minute to get used to. I still think I'm probably the fastest walker in all of downtown San Diego sidewalks because I can't help it. I'm just a naturally fast talker, fast walker. So that was definitely something I had to get used to. I think the pacing here of things, things get done, but just at a different pace. And it's actually been very refreshing and kind of nice to transition into that. So now when I go back to New York, I feel like I'm the slowest walker.
Yes.
It's funny. I was wondering, like, how did you go from tech to fitness, and what made you want to open the studio? Was there a need for it here that you didn't find, or what made you decide to jump from one to the other like that?
I think for me, I had been in the job and for the company, I was like the ninth employee, and we had grown to, at the time that I was there, to about 300 employees in multiple offices. So the company had grown really fast and really big really quickly. So I think I just got burnt out, and I'm a person who goes, 120% into everything they do. I really try to exhaust all avenues. When I do something, I do it all the way. And so I think for me, I got a little bit burnt out and in looking for something different. When I came to San Diego, I couldn't find a studio that was close enough for me to walk to. And obviously, like after living in LA, I was like, I don't want to have to drive unless it's absolutely necessary.
Hmm.
And so when
Zero
I was
commute.
yeah, like I would love to be able to walk, work, and live all in the same space. It's just, as a New Yorker, that's kind of how you're brought up. And so when I went to look for spaces, I couldn't find something that was close enough and also that kind of fit what I was looking for. Like, I think just something that was really welcoming, not to say that places weren't welcoming, but just welcoming, diverse, and just kind of like experience focused versus just the time you're in the physical class. I think that's what I was kind of looking for that I had in New York and LA that I hadn't found yet specifically in San Diego.
Mhm. I think, speaking of your space, I think we all have our own, when I first started my business stories, right? But I want to go back to before you even opened the doors to your spin studio, because I think your story about how you found your space and how you beat out all these people to get this space. I think there's a lot of lessons we can all get from that, where sometimes you're up against the big giant. And if you're just a little more prepared and a little more creative, you can beat the competition. So, can you tell us the story about how you found your space, what you did to win over everybody, and just the general vibe of your space?
Yeah, it's crazy that it's now been like over 7 years since that happened, because obviously,
Mhm.
Studio Six, but pre-opening and all that kind of stuff was a long process. I was actually having lunch with a friend who's my broker, and looking for spaces. I had a business plan, I had funding, all that kind of stuff, but I hadn't yet found the space because I think I was at number 19 or 20th. We'd already seen, and I just was like, I cannot find something that ticks all my boxes, that kind of gives you that live work sort of like vibe around. It's walkable, all those kinds of things, open, and very clean aesthetic. And so I was having lunch with him after we just looked at our 20 something place. And he was mentioning that he had seen that something was maybe coming on the market or maybe not, but it was through a friend, mutual connection of his that he knew from college. And so he was like, I put feelers out there, I sent an email. I haven't heard back yet, but who knows? It may not turn out into anything. Literally 5 minutes later, while we're at that lunch, he gets a call from the guy who it was a mutual friend from college. And he's like, hey, I'm happen to be on site in San Diego today, and I saw your email. I'm available in an hour. If you can meet me in an hour, come. If not, then it'll have to be a few weeks, and God knows what would happen by then. So I was like, yeah, let's go. So we head down there. We go to meet with him. He was super great. He was VP of marketing for all of their rental, like leasing office buildings.
Mhm.
And he was like, I'm going to be upfront. Like, the space had everything I wanted. The building had just gone through this like $4 million renovation. So aesthetically, all the things that I wanted were there. Location and all those things hit the mark. And he was like, I like you, but I have to be upfront and honest with you. There's already another established spin studio, like not just another business, but an actual spin studio. And you have never done this before. You're just starting out. This is your first venture into any kind of brick and mortar business, period. So, give me your elevator pitch onto why I would choose you over them. So I gave him my quick elevator pitch, talked as fast as I could, and tried to put in as many things as I could in that time.
New
And
Yorker in action.
and at the end of it, he was like, I feel like I like you, and your elevator pitch like feels good. He was like, I'm going to get you a meeting with our leasing team who would make the final decision. can you, and like, I'll let you know. And so then I got an email next day. It's in 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. Can you meet this meeting? I was like, yes, I will make this meeting. So I knew going into it that I was coming up against a competitor who had already had an established business in this field. So I really had to figure out how was I going to differentiate myself, what I want, because I can't show them results from an exact established business. And I knew that going into it, a lot of the people in the meeting were going to be men who deal with like leasing and spaces and all that kind of stuff. And I studied design in school. One of the things that we learned about was like being tactile, and some people needing to see, more specifically men, I think more than women, needing to like physically feel things and see things like in space. So I worked with my architect, got 3D renderings drawn up of what we had conceptualized already, but hadn't actually like put pen to paper. I went and took my design, skills, and went to Home Depot and got one of those big like presentation foam board things, and I got sample tiles from vendors and paint chips and bathroom shower head fixture colors and all the things that like really speak to what a space looks like. And I literally just went back to my college days and put together like a mood design board for the overall concept of the studio. I had won a bike. I bought a bike and had it customized with the logo that I was thinking of at the time, and just really tried to like come into the meeting fully prepared with like, this is my business plan. Yes, on paper, this is what it says about me, but like, let me show you physically like that I'm fully immersed in this and I believe in what we're doing. And from a design standpoint, our design of what I had in my head actually really fit the building. So I thought that I could really sell them on the fact that like, this won't just be another tenant in your building, but this will actually be an extension of what you already like did with your $4 million renovation,
Yeah,
like
so
in another
smart.
space. And it really worked out too, because we had obviously all this like specialty lighting, and we're the only studio in San Diego that does that still to this day. And in their building, they have all this like specialty lighting, and I knew that they were really big fans of that. So I had our lighting designer come into the meeting virtually and really showcase through like an online presentation what the lighting would look like, what the program would do, and all that kind of stuff, to really show like, okay, when people walk in from the lobby, let's say a tenant who works on the 5th floor, and they come into the studio, it's going to feel like it has the same vibe as the lobby and the rest of the building that you guys have put so much work into. And I think that I got a call like a few days later that they were like, we're going to take a chance on you. Like, we think that like, we've never seen a presentation where somebody's put this much time and effort into like really showing us the space, or that it's been taught out to this level of detail, to this point where like I hadn't built anything out. And so that really sold them, was being able to like physically feel like they were in the space and experiencing it, and being understanding of like what I was going to deliver as an overall experience. It's not just like a fitness class, it's like the whole thing. And I really think that spoke to them, because that's that's what they do day in, day out. Talk about like spaces and leasing and design and all that kind of stuff. So I just catered to that as best as I could.
So I'm
I love that.
curious,
That's awesome.
first of all, I'm kind of curious, first of all, can you talk to us about first, like how you had the courage to go from like the corporate life to the entrepreneur life, which is no joke, and speak about what was the health scare that really sparked your action into kind of going and starting this studio?
So when I was still in New York, I had developed it's called pericarditis. It's a condition with your heart. It's you kind of develop it after having some sort of like viral infection, things like that. And then it's exacerbated and made worse by stress. And I was working, I want to say like 90 hours a week. I mean, we're in tech, everything moves really fast. It's like you go in at 7, but you're staying there till 9. Yes, you get like lunch and, your rides are paid for and all that kind of stuff, but you're there literally all day, and you eat, breathe, and sleep it 24/7, especially working in like social media space as well. Like it never turns off. So I think for me that, because I'm always all in, I think that like having that level of stress brought on this condition, and it kind of made me really, at the age of, I was 26 at the time, my doctor was like, so I've never had someone this young come to me with this condition before. Like most people that I see that develop this are like well into their late 40s and their 50s, and it's brought on by stress from their work and all this kind of stuff, and they're like, you're only 26, so like this is not a good sign for where you're headed down the line. So I think I had to make a really big decision on, yes, it's scary to leave something that you're comfortable, that you're good at. Obviously, like everybody wants to be good at their job, and I really did enjoy it. But at the end of the day, I realized it wasn't the best avenue for me and my skill sets. And I think that I really thought about like long term what I wanted my, you know, my mark to be on the world. And I think for me, it's always been about like leaving something behind and touching people in a way that is good and not just, you know, developing tech that sells them things online. Like that's great too, but I think there's more to do. And that kind of led me through that fear. Like, yes, was I scared almost literally every day? And I think I like every time I got an email from the contractor, I would panic because I was like, oh my God, something's going to go so wrong. We're not going to be able to keep moving forward. But I think there's something to be said about like having a true passion for something and being able to like have that passion get you through those moments that are really tough and really scary because there's just no way, those are inevitable when you transition into the entrepreneurship when you're doing a business. Like it's inevitable you're going to have hardships, you're going to have troubled times, you're going to have, you know, all those things are going to happen. So I think you have to have a really grounded idea of like what you're working towards and let that be the thing that pushes you out of that like fear and trepidation.
I see. I see.
Um,
I don't go back to you, Manny, after this question, but since we're celebrating 6 years, when you think about maybe 6 different lessons you've learned from having a successful studio and also
Ooh,
navigating
process.
through the pandemic when we couldn't meet in person, so you had to move up to the rooftop and kind
Oh, I
of
got like a
stream some.
million for the pandemic.
Yes, like maybe if in celebration of 6 years of business, what are like the 6 most valuable lessons in business that you've learned over your 6 years?
um, I think number one, and it's funny because when I think back to like 6 years ago, when I would talk to business owners and, you know, ask people to meet me for coffee and all that stuff just to get advice from them or, you know, talk to my mentors that I had from my previous work, the number one thing they would always say is trust your gut. And I always thought that was so cliche,
Mm.
but
Yes.
it's weird. It's like the cliche that is always my number one thing that have learned to really like stick with and B, I think has helped me grow the most as a person, as a business owner, just in life in general, is to really trust your gut. Because I think when I think back to every single time that I have not, that's been a time where things have not gone successfully. So I think for me, trusting your gut is number one and is a big thing that I wish I would have started doing more of earlier on.
Maria, I got to tell you, and I want to hear the other 5, but literally, I'm looking over to the right of my bulletin board. My mom wrote this note that says, trust your gut. It is the most valuable GPS you have. And I
Yes.
live by that in business. So I'm so happy that's your number one because I think that's a really
Yeah.
good, I'm
It's
looking at it right
crazy.
now.
Like I just, yeah, it's definitely like one of those ones where back, you know, 6 years ago, I was like, oh, it's so cliche, like whatever. And now I'm like, no, it's true.
Truth. Mhm.
Yeah, I think number two is I think vulnerability is a skill that I don't think I had 6 years ago, 7 years ago. Even in my prior profession, I had to manage people like a pretty decent sized team. But being in tech and things being remote and working like online, I feel like you move a little bit quickly. And so there's not as much time for one on one connection with your team members and all that kind of stuff. So I think being vulnerable and open to communication amongst your team is something that I think has been a valuable lesson for me, and I think has been helpful in growing and continuing to you know develop the business and the studio as a whole, which is something that I would not have thought about because I just didn't think that that was like a business thing. But I actually think it's been a huge part and a lesson that I definitely take with me all the time. So be more vulnerable and open to communication, even amongst your own team. Okay, let's see. Okay, I'm gonna give you a pandemic one because I feel like we did a lot during the pandemic.
Yes. Yes, you
I
did.
think I think moving quickly and what is the saying that they used to say when I worked in tech? It was like move fast and break things. Because I think a lot of the
Hmm.
times, especially when you're going into something unknown, you have a lot of hesitation. You almost like overthink. And there comes a point where you overthink to the point where you stop yourself from doing something that might be beneficial to you. Granted, it might not work out, but I think at the end of the day, moving quickly was something that allowed us during the pandemic to really like stay on top of things because things were moving really quickly. So we had to react really quickly. And I think that leads me into my like next one, which is like understanding and and threading your purpose of your business through every decision you make. So before I make any kind of decision, whether it's a monetary one, whether it's something to do operationally, logistically, whatever it is, I always think back, like, is this serving the purpose of this studio, right? Like, what is our purpose, number one, but then also is what I'm about to do, the decision I'm about to make, how is that impacting or pushing that purpose more forward? I think that was, is that 5?
That's
Yeah.
4.
That's
4.
That's 4, but yeah, that's a good one for life though. Thread your purpose. Thread your purpose.
Yes.
I love that.
No,
Yes.
and I think it goes into, like, I think about it honestly before I make every decision is like, does that serve that purpose? And it helps answer a lot of questions that maybe I'm doubting my own gut in. Okay, so 5, I would say, like, understand who your team is and like what their wants and needs are. Because I think for me, especially running like a fitness business, who we have on our team is so crucial and key. And I think without them, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And so I think understanding and trusting them is just like one of the things I've learned. And to just almost like relinquish control. Because I think a lot of entrepreneurs are a little bit of control freaks, I think, in my mind. We like to like kind of like, you know, have our hands in there a little bit. So I think being able to trust your team, understand them, and allowing that to let you relinquish a little bit of control is key, I think, to also like preventing yourself from being overworked and overthinking and all those things. And I think the last one, honestly, is like also kind of a pandemic lesson, is that like you need a lot less to do what you set out to do than you actually think you do. Like obviously our space is beautiful and our lights are really cool, and like, you know, the physical space of it all is really, really awesome. I'm really proud of what we built there. But I think at the end of the day, during the pandemic, I learned that literally you could be in a garage, it's raining outside, or under a tent where like the winds are going crazy, and still deliver on your purpose. Because I learned during the pandemic that like what we were delivering on was much more than just the physical part of it. Like what we were delivering on the most, I think that what people really connect to the most, and what like drove us through the pandemic, was the like connection emotionally that we've made with people. And like you can do that anywhere, right? Like you can do that through a screen. You can do that, because at first I was like, oh my gosh, it's gonna be really hard to deliver what you're so used to in person, but through a screen. But then I was like, we can teach that. We can teach people to make their movements bigger, or how to be on camera. You know what I mean? And so I think understanding that when we were, our true purpose, what we were truly delivering and what people connected to the most, was not actually physical. It was actually like a little bit more emotional, a little bit less in the real world kind of thing.
Awesome. Great. 6 lessons. I
Wow.
love it. We wrote them down too.
I was scribbling feverishly. Were you, Amani? We're gonna have to wrap at the end. Pick our
Yes.
favorites. That was
Yes,
great.
yes. I got my note card right here.
I
Yeah.
know. Yeah, I got mine right here too. Well, I want to build on that because you said something about, you know, delivering an experience and building a community. And Maria, I think that is something you do so well, is just build that loyalty and build that community. Yeah, with your customers. And the fitness industry, I think I read somewhere it's a $34 billion industry. It's growing exponentially, and it's a flooded marketplace. It's really busy. And in tandem, customers were fickle and people aren't loyal anymore, right? And so, you do such a good job at recognizing new writers and provoking existing writers to come back, and then celebrating those long-term writers. So I'm just curious, like, can you share some of those specific tactics that you do just to keep people coming back for more and keep people loyal, keep customers loyal?
I think when it comes to fitness, like one of the main drivers for me, and like as a person, and I still till this day, I'm like, I don't consider that I like look like a fitness person, right? Like I have this tech background, like come from corporate America, so I wasn't like an instructor, right? When I started all of this, and one of the things when I go to fitness studios, and before I even opened here, when I would go to studios, I would always think about what the general like experience was when I would walk through the door. Do I feel welcome? Do they acknowledge me when I walk in? Do people in the space like see me, right? Or are they just looking past me and kind of like going through the motions to get on to the next thing? And to me, that's super important to how you walk into a store. And I think in working in retail, that kind of solidified it for me when I was younger, of the overall experience, how someone feels when they walk into the space initially. Like even the paint color, right? Like our space is super bright, super white. We have all these clear windows in the front, because every space that I had walked into, it's a little bit darker, or maybe the front area isn't as open. And to me, like the height of your desk, I've gone to a lot of studios where that front desk is like higher. And so then the front desk person is like this and you're underneath of it, right? Like on the front side. And to me, in my mind, like subconsciously to a consumer, that would signal like you're walking into a space and we're here and you're here. Right. So our desk is on purpose at the same height, so that if I'm standing and I'm welcoming you in, we are looking at each other at the same level, like on the same plane, versus me being higher than you and you being lower. Right. Like those small things, which is maybe not something that people think about really, but subconsciously it's like forming and shaping the way they experience your space. So just from the way they walk in, literally not a single person can walk through our door. It's like ingrained in our staff without someone walking in and say hi. Like it's to the point where like if there's, you know, 3 of us up at the front and somebody walks in, we're like, hi, hi, hi. Like it's every single person. Because to me, it's really important for people to feel welcome. Like I think fitness can be really scary for a variety of reasons for people. And so what can we do to make that experience a lot less scary? So when people come in, there's a little bit less fear, right? Like you're already kind of like, I'm like calling, making sure I know the directions. I want to get there 20 minutes early because I don't want to be late. I'm going to have to use the bathroom at least twice before class starts, like all those things. And so how do we take away some of those fears that people already have by just making the space feel more welcoming and us welcoming them in initially right when they walk in. But also, like you said, so we have new writer, like we hand write a card for every single new person that comes to our studio, and we put it on their bike that they selected in advance. We write their name on a locker. We have like a whole section in our locker area that's dedicated to just new riders, and we put their name on their locker and their bike number, because a lot of people forget it by the time they like walk to the locker area. And then we also help them one-on-one physically set up their bike and also give them a tour of the space. And all those different touch points that we have from the beginning all the way into the class through to the end, because at the end they obviously have to walk back past the front desk. So it's that our point then to check in with them again. And obviously like they've already had a connection with the front desk person because they walked them in, they gave them a tour, they walked them into the room, helped them set up their bike, all that stuff. That whole process is like one, A, to make people feel welcomed, and B, it's like if you're more educated on where things are in our studio and how to ride the bike properly and set yourself up, you're more likely to return, because that just makes you feel like you're already kind of like ahead of the curve. You already know what you're doing just after one class, right? So if it was that great of an experience just after one, imagine what it could be like 2 or 3 or 4, you know, that sort of thing. So that overall, like from the beginning, the minute someone walks in all the way through to the end, that whole idea of like welcoming, let's like make sure you know what you're doing, and like understanding that we're like here to help you, connection kind of thing all the way rolled through.
I love that. And then going back to the longtime writers, right? I was in one of your classes where, and could you tell the story where I think it was somebody's 200th
was moving away.
Yeah, that or the 200. It was somebody was moving, or the 200th ride. I was in those 2 classes, and I was like, "How is she remembering this? This is amazing."
So our system like tracks when people, you know, how many classes someone has taken, all that kind of stuff, and then our studio management team goes through and checks like, oh, somebody's going to hit their 200th class tomorrow, and they're riding it tomorrow at 4:45 p.m. let's say. So then in our system we can write little notes, and it says, you know, Mandy's hitting her 200th class with in this class, and we can write the note in. We have handwritten cards. We have like a whole milestone sort of like rewards program. So if you hit 100 classes, you get, you know, a $5 gift card. If you hit 200 classes, you get, you know, a free water bottle and hat. You hit 500, you get a free month on your membership kind of thing. So we have all these different milestone markers, because milestones specifically when tied to fitness experience are really like helpful for people to have those like markers and to be able to like see their progress over time, right? Like I started here maybe like afraid the very first time, and now I'm up to my 50th class or 100th class, you know what I mean? So we really try to celebrate those moments, both the big and the small, because I think it really helps people connect with like the work that they're doing in the classes and make it more enjoyable, because they can see themselves like growing and building those milestones over time. But the other story, the other class we were in, it was a rider who had been a longtime rider of ours. And he actually started riding during the pandemic when we opened outdoors. And he just like loved it so much. He was literally coming every single day. And he had made a really big impact on our just community overall. Like every time he walked into a class, he would say hi to people. And like, he was just a really friendly, like nice, generally nice person. And so I think all of the staff and a lot of the riders that he rode with a lot really connected with him. And so during his very last class, he ended up taking my class as his last class. And so we got him a cupcake and like brought him onto the podium and he took my bike and we had balloons for him. And we all, we just kind of gave him a moment to say thank you, because I think a lot of the times when people go to a fitness class, they see the instructor and there's like a wall between the two of them. But I think the way we teach and the way we do things at our studio is there's like a real like, the bar is down, we're really connecting with each other. It's not like I'm here and you're over there. It's like we kind of all do this together. And I think he really embodied that. And like, it's like my ideal like of how a customer to business relationship should be. And so I just was really like, sad to see him go, because you could sense him when he walked into the studio. And so for me, it's important. Just because he's moving doesn't mean that he doesn't have a connection with our studio, right? Like it doesn't mean he doesn't still make an impact on our community. So it's important, I think, to highlight and congratulate and celebrate like returning and existing customers, even customers who might not be your customers right now, because maybe where he's moving to, somebody's moving to San Diego and he tells them about us, right? And that helps us, kind of thing. So
Yeah, and I think that the business lesson in that I took away was like, here's this owner. She's got a customer going away. Most owners are like, okay, c'est la vie. They don't invest in the customers that are going away. And you invested in time. I think there were sparklers. And I thought, this is a great business lesson. Invest in the customers that were loyal to you, even if they're going away. Because for me, I didn't know him at all, but I was in that class and I felt lucky to be a part of that community. And I felt even further cemented and loyal to your business because of how you treated somebody else too. So I just thought that was awesome.
I think when it comes to all of the milestones and all of the things we do to celebrate people, I think it just goes back to like, we really do genuinely care and like we put that out there. And I think that then attracts other people to be like, oh, wow, this place actually like follows through on their purpose and their, ethos and all those sort of things.
Yeah,
Amazing.
awesome.
So we got a couple questions from the audience. Please, if you're tuning in live, feel free to ask questions there. So Vicky Meldrum says, you have a very specific point of view and thought process for your brand, which is amazing. How do you find and train people so that they live the brand and mission so that it is your customers get not just from you, but anyone they interact with in your business?
Especially now when it's hard to find good people and keep good staff. This is a great question. Thank you, Vicky.
I think one of the things that I like to do when we hire people is, one, we actually end up getting a lot of people who rode at the studio, and let's say we're looking to hire and we post on social media, come in and ask questions, because obviously someone actually just told me the other day, are you hiring? And we weren't at the time. And I was like, oh no. And they're like, oh, this just seems like such a great place to work, because when I come here, your staff looks happy. And to me, that signals that like the environment that they're working in is good. And so that to me was a really big compliment, because I think one of the things we really try to push is like, I have this passion. And so I try to like instill that same passion into our staff members, right? To make sure that they're understanding like, we have this great work environment and we want that same type of environment for our community members, right? Like we are having fun and then in turn helps us to help them have more fun. So I think we kind of try to really instill in our team members to just be really open and vulnerable and not afraid to take risk and just talk to strangers and all that kind of stuff, because I think that a lot of times holds people back. And so I think we really instill in our team members from the very first time they come in all the way until while they're working, to just really communicate and like be vulnerable in front of our members and connect with them and just be really real. And obviously they have to be friendly, and we have like, I'm like a big sucker for manuals. And so we try to train people to like anticipate the questions and just have the information ready and to make the experience for the customer like the best they can. And then we reward them for that. And I think that is really key to why we've been able to keep, our team for so long, and why they're able to continue that like experience process, even when I'm not there. I mean, I only go in twice a week now, or if I have to go in for a special event, and it's still running to the same level. Like our team really does care, I think, because they had the same experience when they came to see us. And so they want to kind of like reciprocate that and continue to pass that on.
Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, we have another audience question. Laurie Kime, thank you for asking this question. Laurie says, what's one thing you would do differently from the beginning if you had the opportunity?
Ooh, good question.
Yes.
Good question. It's really random. It doesn't like probably people would be like, that doesn't apply to me, but I think it applies to me, is really pushing to have in laundry in our building because it's actually such a pain when you have to deal with like logistical things like that, with like just literally getting towels delivered and laundered and all that kind of stuff. There's a place nearby, so it's not too bad, but it would be really nice to be able to kind of control another process within our day-to-day operations. So that would be for me something that I would really, really do differently and really push for the building to allow us to add that in during the construction phase.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to take a quick little left turn. I understand that you're a DJ and you like to spin and DJ out. So I have a bunch of questions because I'm a professional DJ myself. So my first question is two parts. First, if you're coming up in Padre Stadium and you're coming up to bat, what song is playing as you walk up to bat? And then the second part is tell us about your DJ career, what equipment you use, what events have you been, and what's been your most memorable DJ experience?
Okay, so the first question is anything by Beyonce. I am obsessed, literally obsessed. So anything by Beyonce, I will come out and I think I would bat homer. Like, I think it would really get me ready to go. So I think in terms of like most memorable events, I use Tractor, and I don't necessarily call myself a professional. I ended up actually starting to DJ just because I wanted to take a class. I had a friend who was a DJ. So he gave me we did demo classes and all that kind of stuff. I bought my Tractor equipment, the software on your computer, all that kind of stuff. And I just really love music, obviously, with what I do. I just really did it just for fun. And then a friend of mine asked me to DJ a fitness class that she was teaching. She was like, I need a DJ and could you help me out? And I was like, okay, I've never done this, but like, sure. So I just took my speakers, my stand, and all my equipment and figured out how to like match it. Obviously being an instructor was helpful because I could match the music to how we typically, do a class. And it was great. And so many people are like, do you have a car? Do you do weddings? And like all this stuff. So it kind of started out of just for fun and then turned into like a hobby that's now also become like a side hustle, as you do. But my most memorable, I would say I did a birthday party on a sail yacht. And I got to DJ and have my equipment, like I had to bring it on the boat. It was really, really cool. The water and like the rocking was something I'd obviously never done before. And there was no like, there's no guide or manual to like, how do you DJ on a moving vessel? But we figured it out and it was actually really, really fun. And it was a 21st birthday party. So I felt very out of place with the but I'm lucky that like my musical taste, they approved and like they all had a great time. So it was a really, really fun experience. And I definitely like love doing it. And I think it's fun. The reason I like enjoy DJing and like doing it is because I really like to see people react with like the sort of highs and lows of music and the changes. And just really vibing off of that to me is really, really fun. So I enjoy it a lot.
Okay. Break My Soul, Beyonce. Are you in? Do you like that track?
I'm obsessed. Here's my thought on this. So Beyonce and Drake are both coming out with like house type of like bass music, and I think it's because all these DJs for all this span of time have been taking samples of their audios and their music and putting them to house music. And so then when you go to a club or you go out or you're at a spin class, you hear this remixed version of the song and you're like, wow, I really like this version, sometimes even more than the original. And I think they just thought, like, let's take out the middleman and let's do it ourselves. Like, people are already doing it. So I'm really into it because I think it's a great clash of, house music and hip hop. So I'm into it.
All right. Michelle Devine has a question. Thank you for this question, Michelle. Please keep asking these questions. These are great from the chat. We love it. She wants to know, where do you see your business in 3 years?
Wow, great question. I think for me, I'm currently working on something we sort of did during COVID only because we had the space, which was doing mat-based workouts because a lot of people didn't have bikes and, they couldn't get a bike and equipment. They just couldn't buy anything anywhere. So doing mat-based workouts, but applying the same format that we do on the bike. So having it rhythm-based, 45 minutes. So a lot of like the things that make our same classes great, transitioning those onto like a mat-based workout was something that we kind of explored a little bit during COVID. And I actually have enjoyed it a lot. And when we did those classes, it was only for a short while. Our community members really enjoyed taking those classes. So for me, I'm looking into exploring developing something that is bike plus mat, like a little bit of a hybrid sort of model. I think it would lend itself better to a wide range of people. Because I think sometimes people see spin and they only see it in this one bucket. And so maybe they don't try it. And so I think for me, it's like, how do I get the most amount of people to just try it? You know what I mean? So I think finding a way to bridge that gap between maybe what people are comfortable with or what they're used to, and then adding the spin component in our own way, I think is really exciting and something that I'm really excited to explore and hopefully bring into the physical space. Maybe that means, you know, having an expansion of a space or moving or creating a second location, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
I want to do that on the mat. That sounds fun. Count me in. Count me in for that. I want to, yeah, it sounds fun. I want to go, I'm going to take an even further left turn really quick because I know we're wrapping up in a little bit, but I'm curious because I know it's the Achilles heel, right? For so many businesses is social media of what do I post? When do I post? What social channels do I use? Followers? Do I use videos? Do I do story? Is Facebook in or out? Do we like TikTok? All these things, right? So I think you are so strong on social media. Maria Spins, right? And if you guys don't follow her, you have to follow Maria_spins on Instagram and then Pure Indoor Cycling. Both channels are entertaining and educational. They're awesome. But I'm just curious from a strategy standpoint, can you just share some tactics for other entrepreneurs or just business people out there that you use in your business? And even if you have tools too, I think you said you have some scheduling tools.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
How you're using social media. Yeah.
I think in terms of determining which platform you think works best for your business, I think you have to think about like who your consumer is and where they're spending their time. I literally every single day read a blog about social media. Like I actually find it really entertaining because it's what I used to do prior to this. So my prior job was in that field. So I think you have to really understand where your consumer is, like where they're spending their time on their phones. And that's based on you knowing your customer. So I think for us, like we primarily focus on Instagram and a little bit of Facebook. TikTok is like, yes, it's there. We have a lot of people who consume TikTok, but they don't necessarily like convert from TikTok, right? Because of where our demographic fits and all that kind of stuff. So we don't have a TikTok account. We don't have a Twitter because it just doesn't fit. You know, I think at the beginning I tried every single app, and then where I saw the most sort of traction is what I steered towards. But I think because I used to work in social media and I am really like interested in it as like just like a, you know, knowledge thing. I really think about like, how are people engaging on the platform? And I think for us, it's being like the same conversational sort of like format that we have when people walk into our space. We try to just replicate that on social media. So I remember way back in the day, like when I was like sitting down, writing out my business plan, writing out my marketing plan, all that kind of stuff, really sitting down and walking myself through like, okay, if Pure was a person and they had an Instagram, what would that look like? How would they talk to people? Would they use emojis or would they not use emojis, right? Because there are some brands and I'm like, it doesn't make any sense for like the World Health Organization to use emojis. Like that doesn't seem like something they would do, right? So I think really thinking about like who your brand is and what that consumer is, what they look like, will tell you a lot about how you should use these platforms. I think for me too, is like staying on top of trends, is like every day there's a new trend, every day things change. And like the things that don't change are that like, this is a great platform for video. It's a great platform to connect. And it's a great platform to, you know, really like resell and convert people, right? Because you can click directly into things. And I think the platforms have made it a little bit easier for businesses to do that. But I think staying on top of trends is something that I would definitely like highly recommend people do. And there's a lot of blogs, like I read Later and Blogspot and a bunch of other blogs on there that have blog tips and like sort of like new and up and coming trends. And so I tend to read those and try to see which ones apply the most to my business. There's some that don't apply, and so I just don't try them. I'm like, that doesn't fit. I think that's another thing when you're thinking about social media as a whole is like something might not fit your brand, and that's totally okay. You don't have to do that. If I would say like 3 tips on Instagram for anyone right now is reels, reels, reels. Like literally everything should
Yeah.
be a reel.
Mhm. Like
So
a
it's just
post
like,
should be a reel, a story should be a reel, just all the reels. And like a time limit, you have like a suggestion for timing on it?
I would say coming from an ad perspective, just thinking in like that mindset, you have to hook people in the first 3 seconds. So the shorter, right? Like anytime that I do something that's like 8 seconds, to me, that's like ideal timing, right? Like, so I try to keep things under 30 seconds is like my maximum because nobody has more than 30-second attention span on Instagram. So like just steer clear of that. But I think you have to really think about hooking people in the first 3 seconds of the video. And it's got to be something that like is either like a quick transition or like something that really like catches people's attention and you only have 3 seconds to do that. There's a lot of apps that I use to help me do all those things because I think the other thing that actually going back to my 6th lesson, this is a bonus lesson on top of those 6, is understanding
Bonus.
your weaknesses and your strengths and figuring out your weaknesses, what things help you do those better, or is it someone else that does it better? Use that person versus you trying to figure it out yourself because you'll ultimately lose more time versus gaining something. So I obviously like have to edit all the videos. I do all the social media and all that stuff. So I use as many apps as possible out there that'll do the job for me. So I use one for Reels. It's called Video Leap, Leap. And it literally has templates of reels that are already out there and trending because the app does all the work for you. And all you have to do is take your images or your video and literally load them in, and it, just creates the reel for you with the music and everything. And then you can download it and post it right to your social media. So I
Awesome.
use that one a lot. I use an app called Splice, like Slice, but with a P. That one's also really great just for video editing and sort of like try to stay on trend, but who has time to sit on Final Cut for like hours editing a video, right? So a
Mhm.
lot of these apps make the job a lot easier for you. It's just more about figuring out like what works for you and what kind of content you have. I use Canva and Planoly a lot as well. Canva for just generating, flyers and social media like marketing type of content, and then Planoly to actually like plan and execute on our social media strategy. Because I think the other thing that people do is they kind of just forget about it. But I really utilize it as a sort of like launching pad because it does help me to understand where are people connecting with like really, really quickly in real time. And then that way I can like make decisions on other things that we're doing based off of that. So I kind of use it as like a testing ground to kind of see like where people connecting with this instructor, or is it this type of theme class, or is it this type of promotion? You know what I mean? And I can really test it on there and then roll it out through marketing and other channels. So I think really having an overall strategy and using apps like Planoly to help you plan those out. That way you're not having to like think about it last minute and you're like, oh my gosh, I should post something. And then you just post like whatever without any really thought process behind it. So
Yeah.
those would be like my main sort of like tips for people.
So in the
Awesome.
app you mentioned was Video Leak, Leak?
Video Leap with a P.
Leap with a P. Okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
it's
We
really
have
cool. Yeah, that
another
one's
we
really
have another, and I'll pull it up while we're doing this. We have another question from the audience, but also before I ask you the audience question, I know that you have a business book club. And so if you're going to think about maybe 2 or 3 books you'd recommend people who are kind of in the space we're in, that they should stop what they're doing right now and start to read them immediately, what 2 or 3 books come to mind?
Well, I have to say Mandy's Sales Tales because it's actually a really great
Okay.
book. Yeah, I
Okay.
really liked it. I gifted it to my studio manager too, because I just think even if you're not in sales, there's a lot of great tools you can learn in there that you can apply to other things. And I really also just like reading your story about your job in the past and how that's, all those experiences led you to where you are today. So I
Thank
definitely have to
you.
give a plug to Mandy. I
Thank
think the
you.
other there's a book by Brene Brown. Brene Brown. It's called Dare to Lead. I think as a young entrepreneur, when I started, youngish, I that book really helped me sort of like understand the way that I communicate with others and how I communicate with my team is going to be pivotal to how my business is going to do. And really understanding, vulnerability and communication within amongst your team and how to do that, really honestly. So I would highly recommend if people have not read that. It's a really great book, especially if you've never like managed a team or ran a business before where you have to like employ people and answer questions for them and things like that. Coming from the corporate world, I think that was a good book to read. So I was Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. I'm trying to think. There's like this random book, and I got it at Urban Outfitters, but it's called How to Take a Good Photo. Literally, it's
Oh,
called How to Take a Good Photo, or How to Take a Good Photograph, something like that. And in having to like take social media content for my business, it's really, really important to know how to do that well so that you can do that on the fly and not always have to hire a professional, right? Sometimes maybe you don't have the funds or maybe they're not available and you need to get content. So really just that book is super simple and it just really lays out like super fundamental tools that you can use even with just your camera phone. And I think it was like really helpful for me to just be able to understand how to take a photo so that I could take it or a video, So yeah,
I'd love
those are
that.
my three.
I'm gonna have to pick that up, but we're gonna have to send you. I'll bring Amani's book to the studio because
Yes,
he
yes.
wrote a book. His book's super interesting too. It's about a
Mhm.
day in the life of a DJ experience. It's pretty
Yes.
awesome.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that. Oh, I definitely would. Yeah, I would love to read that.
Awesome. So I think now, because we're about 5 minutes out from finishing, now's the time when we turn the tables and you get to ask us each a question.
Okay.
So we'll let you start. Maybe we can start with Mandy's question first, and we'll see. You can ask Mandy the question she can answer.
Okay. Let's see. Mandy. I would love to know, because you do all these conferences and you're sort of just getting back into it. What's been different about how people interact with each other at these bigger conferences than pre-COVID?
That's a great question. I love that. Do I have to answer in 20 seconds or less? Or can I go longer than 20
We'll give you
seconds, Amani?
45 seconds to a minute. We'll give you
Okay.
45 seconds to a minute.
Producer Amani's coming back out. Here it's coming near the end of the show, so the producer Amani's put his
Yes.
hat back on.
Yeah.
So that's a great question, and I have noticed a stark difference. I think people are much more connected to each other. They instead of "Hi, how are you?" just walking past people are actually truly interested in the answer. They want to connect with you so much more. They actually want to get to know you where there was so much more small talk, but I think so much has happened to us in the last 2.5, 3 years on an individual, like a micro and a macro level, that I think people are really actually taking the time to get to know each other. So much so that when you're programming a conference, it's like instead of a 15-minute break, give a 30-minute break. Instead of an
Wow.
hour breakfast, do a
Mhm.
2-hour breakfast because the networking opportunities are abundant and people truly they want to know, hey, what happened in the last couple of years? And oh, here's how this is working for this next phase of my life. I really think people are more interested in getting to know each other and they're swerving away from small talk. That's the biggest difference I've seen.
Great answer. All right.
I love that.
Next question will come to me. Go ahead.
Okay. What is your DJ spirit animal? So not you as a person, but you as a DJ. It could be the same one.
Ooh.
I don't know. I'm assuming maybe it's two different vibes.
So DJ spirit animal. I'm trying to think of the type of dog that would run long distances because I do like a lot of long sets, and so I'm going to go up and down and over and take different journeys. But a dog that like a hunting dog that's will kind of can go and run for hours at a time. So I don't know what kind of dog would that be. I don't want to say a greyhound because that's a speed dog, but like
Long distances, maybe like a mountain dog, maybe because they have to travel.
yeah,
Like
but
they have to.
good travel or a mountain
Yeah.
lion. Let's go with the mountain lion. That would be like my DJs because we battle at sometimes. We have to go over long distances. We have to kind of find our own prey. So that would be kind of my spirit animal as a DJ. Great question. No one's ever asked me that before.
Ooh,
So
It's my
endurance
favorite
dog.
interview
We've got to
question
find
to ask.
endurance dog.
yeah, yeah. And Jamie, how do you pronounce your last name? It's Hsia. We see you in the chat. So thank you for complimenting Mandy's book. And then I want to get you a final question from the audience before we close off. So Vicky Meldrum asked another question. It's probably a pretty simple answer for you, but did you build proprietary software for Pure for the member tracking you spoke of, or do you use an existing fitness platform?
So we initially used an existing platform, but then I worked with a tech company to develop our own software with the goal of maybe eventually selling that software, testing it out on our end, and then maybe becoming like a software that other studios could then use.
Awesome. Great.
Great
Mandy,
question. I didn't know that.
yeah. I'll let you kind of close off, Mandy, and then we'll kind of end the show. So over to you, Mandy. How do you want to let us leave?
I mean, I just want to say, well, a couple things. Number one, endurance dog might be my new favorite, my new favorite moniker. Thank you, Maria Amani. That may be what I call you. I didn't know, I love that you said if you had Beyonce when you're up at the plate, you would bat homers. That was great. And I think your 6 lessons, I think we'll probably put this up when we show the replay, but I think the 6 lessons are awesome. And my favorite lesson was thread your purpose, that you said. And I think we all can do that. Let's wake up with a different intention to thread our purpose through our business. It's not always about the dollars and cents. So I really appreciated that. And, Maria, thank you for being here. If people want to get in touch with you, if they want to take a spin class, if they want you to do their 21st birthday party for you being their DJ, how can people get in touch with you?
So you can find me on Instagram, Maria_spins. You can also visit purestudio.com if you're ever in San Diego. First class is free if you're a resident. So definitely come check us out. Check us out online. Instagram for Pure is Pure Studio ST. So you can find us on Instagram and just on purestudio.com.
Awesome. We put your Instagram up during the broadcast. So this is it right here. So there you are. And then we'll share your website too. But yes, just awesome. I think for me, my favorite lesson you shared was just move quickly. Move quickly. That's a common lesson. So I think that's very accurate because a lot of times we procrastinate and that gets in our way. So that would be my. I think
second guess too. Sometimes you have to just kind of like go with it, and versus like continuing to try to figure out every outcome before you even just move forward. Yeah.
Great. Well, we'll give you a round of applause and then we'll go back and we'll bid people adieu. So thank you again. It's been a pleasure and we'll stay in touch with you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
Thanks, Maria.
All right, Mandy, you want to tell us what's coming up next in the next few weeks?
Yeah, so we have another show coming up August 15th. Same time, same sandbox, 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And our guest is the founder of a company called Fit City Adventures. You'd think we were a wellness podcast with all of our fit founders, but her name is Angela Minardi, and she is awesome. She's really big in the meetings and the conference industries, but she actually helps teams with outdoor events. So if you want to you want to coordinate a 5K, if you want to do a fun, amazing race type thing, it can be, low level to high level experience in terms of, the fitness levels of the groups. But she does fitness adventures for corporations, just for team building or for your meetings or conferences. And it's Fit City Adventures. And she's got a bunch of interesting stories too. I think she also has a haunted house that I'd like to talk to her about too. So Angela Minardi is August 15th at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
August 15th. Seth Springman, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate that. Craig Charn, hope I pronounced your last name right. Thank you very much for tuning in. Great episode, Manny. Thank you very much. I'm excited for August 15th. And until we meet then, stay safe and can't wait for episode number 2.
Enjoy your adventures in business. Right. See you soon.
Take care, everyone. Round of applause.